is a summons to court. So if you're that much of a rebel, you're probably not going to show up to court either. Well, now you very possibly have a warrant. And so eventually getting pulled over for something as simple as, you didn't put a tag on your car, well, now you can get arrested and go to jail that day, and they're going to impound the car. And if you couldn't afford to fix it and get it legal before, you probably can't now for sure, you know?
Yeah.
So and I had a friend once, and he had a late model vehicle. There was no reason why it wouldn't pass inspection, but for some reason, I don't remember why, but there was an issue with it. And he drove on a tag that was expired for quite some time. And finally got pulled over, and that's exactly what he said. He said, it took me 2 years to get pulled over, and the fine wasn't that bad. I'll just keep driving like this. And so there's that attitude. But
I saw this was a Mercedes SL. That's a $100,000 vehicle. Oh. His tags were 2 months. His temporary tags were 2 months expired. 2 months.
Yeah.
Now if he paid $100,000 for that car, maybe he really didn't have this.
Yeah, didn't think this through. Yeah, couldn't afford the sales tax. Well, yeah, I don't know. It's I just don't know. But this year, more than any other time, it's understandable because at one point, Department of Revenue, your license offices were closed.
Sure.
But they're back open now, and unfortunately, I know that there's a couple close to where I live, and you drive by, and luckily, none of my stuff expires for a while, but you go by, and the line's around the block. And so it's like, even now that they're open, I could see people saying,
such a backlog.
I'm not going in there right now. But yeah, 2 years, you didn't just... This thing didn't expire during the Corona outbreak. You've never licensed this thing. You know?
That's right. That's right. They were still playing baseball when this thing expired.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Matt Carpenter was still a good ball player when this thing expired.
No.
That was a long time ago.
Yeah, it's I've had, there's been times in my life I never drove without insurance. And that's another thing is, even before I was in law enforcement, it always seemed to me that if you had insurance. Yeah, maybe you didn't have the tag yet because you just bought it and you're having a hard time getting it to pass inspection, or something was wrong and you were saving up your money to fix it. But if you at least had insurance, it would usually just be, take this thing home. I don't want to see anymore tonight.
Right.
But you didn't. As long as you had the insurance, it was like, okay, you're somewhat responsible. Thank goodness you're protecting other people. You got liability insurance, so okay. But it always seemed to me, whether I was the driver or the passenger, but if you didn't have insurance, that's when they started writing tickets. It seemed like
That's. I've never understood that. I've heard a lot of people say, look, I don't have insurance because I can't afford it. Now, maybe I'm just being a pompous ass. Maybe I'm just being, I don't know. But if you can't afford the insurance, then you can't afford to drive the car. You need to take public transportation.
Yeah.
Am I off base there? That's what it costs.
Yeah, and that's not even necessarily a law enforcement thing. It's just a fact of life. It's part of owning the car. Maybe you need to sell the car if you're that broke.
Insurance is protection against accidents. Accidents, not incidents on purpose, accidents. Yeah. People screw up, they make mistakes, they have accidents, they run into things. If I run into you and you're driving a 2020 Mercedes SL, it's my responsibility to fix your car. Mm-hmm. It's not tough turkey feathers for you, right?
Yeah.
It's just a common sense thing.
Yeah, and I wish, I used to listen to the Dave Ramsey show a lot, and I know some people think he's, a know-it-all, or I think he's great. I think he's a real smart guy.
I love Dave Ramsey.
Yeah, I haven't listened to him in a while, but we were on his program for a while, and it did help us out, but he talked about you could be like self-insured, and that to me sounds like a great thing because you don't have to worry about like the constant fluctuation of insurance rates and how one car is more expensive than the other and it sounds really great, but I've never had enough money in my life to be self-insured like that. But that's interesting too.
Well, there's self-insured and there's self-insured. An example, this swimming pool we're looking at here. When we got the swimming pool, we said, hey, look, do we need to get some extra insurance for this? They said, no, but you need to up your umbrella policy because if the neighbor kid wanders into the pool and drowns, guess what? That's going to cost a lot of money. That's what insurance is all about. It's being a responsible citizen. I have a swimming pool. The guy behind me does not. He doesn't need that umbrella policy because no one's going to drown in his pool because he doesn't have one. That's just part of the cost. If you live in California, you've got to have earthquake insurance because if there's an earthquake, you lose your house. And houses in California aren't cheap. You've got a $1 million house in California, you've got a mortgage on it. you better have earthquake insurance on it because someone's got to pay that mortgage. It's the law. It's your responsibility. But a lot of people just don't take it. And when they don't take it, people say, well, I can't afford that. Well, then you couldn't afford to buy the house. That's just part of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like buying a Hummer and saying, well, I can't afford the gasoline. Well, son, you shouldn't have bought the Hummer. You should have bought an Escort.
Yeah. I've been known to get excited and buy things that I probably didn't need. And I know at one time I had a $600 car and about $1,000 truck, and I had a $10,000 motorcycle. It didn't make sense. But I mean, I paid the insurance. I kept up with maintenance. I mean, I took care of it. And I did, but it's kind of silly to have this thing that's only good for half the year, and then your real car has a banged up hood, it doesn't close, and it's kind of a junker. It was an old Lincoln town car actually.
Uh-huh.
But anyway, yeah, just. So, I mean, I'm guilty of it, too, but it is silly if you can't afford to do it the right way.
Yeah, but you could afford it, though. Spending the money frivolously but responsibly is fine. Yeah. Everybody does irresponsible things. You got to. That's what makes life fun.
And I'm quite sure there had to have been at least once or twice that I probably rode that thing without my, with an expired motorcycle permit. But I always had insurance, and I always thought, if I get pulled over, hopefully they're nice to me, But it's, you shouldn't do that, but... It was fun, and the weather was nice, and I wanted to go ride.
Speaking of motorcycles with nice weather, very shortly you're not going to have to wear a helmet anymore, are you?
I have not been keeping up with that. They've been trying to pass that since I was a kid, and I think it's kind of a bad idea, but then again, okay, but isn't it my body, my choice? So
I agree 100% with that. I mean,
yeah.
To me, if you don't wear a motorcycle, I'm sorry, if you don't ride a helmet if you don't wear a helmet while you're riding a motorcycle, you're a fool. But if you want to do that, it's your body. You should be able to if you want to.
Yeah, I would not do it. In fact, I know like a lot of it's style, right? Like if you're on like I had crotch rockets, you would call them.
Uh-huh.
And so when you ride those, typically it's not a rule or anything. You can wear whatever helmet you want to, but usually it's a full face helmet, and that's all I've ever owned. If you're on a Harley, usually it's like the skull cap. And they do look cooler. They look cool, but I don't care what the bike itself looks like or whether the style matches or not. I mean, I'm wearing a full-face helmet. I just can't see wearing that little, it looks like it wouldn't do anything.
Sure.
Your face is grinding off on the ground as you're sliding down the road. But it looks tough and it looks cool, and that's why people wear them. And I guess the next best thing would be not wearing one at all, but it's not for me.
Yeah.
I see people riding on nice days, and I think, I haven't had a bike in 5 years. Oh, man, I need another bike. And then I think, it was always dangerous. It's never been, it's always been dangerous to be on two wheels. But now everyone's on their phone. They're definitely not watching out for you. And now I don't think I'd ever want one again.
No, they're not.
Even though I do miss it. But it's a horrible time to have a bike.
Speaking of phones, how much distracted driving do you see out there? Because of a cell phone.
I think even if you're not in law enforcement and you're just driving, how much do you see? It's like every car. And they're looking down at their lap like this, like nobody knows what they're doing. No one drives looking at their crotch, okay? Like, we know what you're doing.
We would hope that not many do. How's that?
And if I need, and I don't use the phone when I'm driving. I mean, it's almost never. If someone calls me, now of course I have my new to me car. It's still old, but it's a 2012 Volkswagen.
Very nice, by the way.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. It's a little turbo 4-cylinder.
Uh-huh.
It's
Those are fast.
It was fun to drive here.
The GTI, that's a fast car.
The GTI, yeah. It's not. There's one more, which is it MKR or something? It's the same car, but it's got like 56 more horse. And I kind of wish it would have been that one, but it's still a fun car. And but so I've always had older vehicles. So this is the first time I've had the whole hands-free, the Bluetooth, and I feel like that's the best way to do it. But
it is.
Over the years, even if I needed to call someone, if I'm going to have to dial the phone, I'll just hold it up to where I can still look around my phone and drive. And maybe that's still distracted, but at least you're still seeing the road in your vision somewhere. But
sure.
These people that are staring at the console for 3 miles straight, like, something can go wrong in 100 feet very quickly at say 55 miles an hour. And the whole time, and someone will be coming towards you, and you're watching them. And maybe they've been in your view for 5 seconds, let's say. But in 5 seconds, how many hundreds of feet have they traveled, and they haven't looked up once?
Yeah.
You almost want to throw something at them.
Well, when I'm in town, as I have been for a long time now, I'm starting to travel again. But I'll go for a nice long walk on my lunch hour. We get a full hour for lunch, so I go for a nice long walk. And part of my walk, it's on a road, it's just 2-lane blacktop with no shoulders and big, deep gutters. So you really have to walk on the road. But there's not much there's not much traffic on this road, so you'll get maybe one car comes by every 5 minutes or so. Okay, so virtually all the people, they see me, they see there's no gutter, and they go over to the other side of the road. I wave, I thank them. There was one guy in a truck, and he was coming right at me. He kept coming, and he wasn't pulling over. So I looked to make sure that there was no other car coming on, so that he couldn't go over. There wasn't. I had to jump off to the side of the road. He would have hit me. And as he went by, he was looking at his phone. Mm-hmm. He never saw me. He never looked up. He never took his eyes off that phone.
It's incredible. You know, I just saw a lady today. Now, thankfully, in this case, she wasn't driving. She had just parked her car and was getting out of her vehicle. It was at my neighbor's house, actually. And they have like a home business, so it's probably a client. But she gets out of the car, and, you know, she's opening the door. She's climbing out of the car. And the whole time she's got her face buried in her phone. And I get it. I check messages too.
Sure.
But it just made me think, and I know I'm negative. Listen, you don't have to tell me. I got like some pretty warped views, I think, on things. Like things annoy me that probably don't annoy other people. But I was mowing my grass, and as I'm mowing, I'm watching her, and all I could think was, like, dude, listen, like, you're not that important. Like, why does everyone think, like, the president of the United States doesn't get this many messages that are that important, and you're definitely not him. So, like, it's just not that important. There's no, sometimes I want to know when people have to stop everything, whether it's driving or whatever they're doing, everything comes to a grinding halt, and they have to look at their phone, and I just want to, like, I want to see the message. I want to know what it was about, because it's like, there's no way it was that big of a deal. You know, you're just not that important.
Uh-huh.
So that's my 2 cents. But
well, I'm glad you've put these stories in here, and this is kind of what I was hoping to get out of the podcast. You've been on the podcast before. I hope you'll come on again. But as a police officer, you're just a regular guy. I mean, you like fast cars. Wink, wink, nod, nod. Don't break the speed limit. You like a nice motorcycle. You go to work just like anyone else. You want to put your time in and do a good job just like anyone else. At the end of the day, you want to say bye to the guys, and you want to go home to your family, and you want to relax and live your life like anyone else. Mm-hmm. Okay. I think that that too many people, not most people, not many people, certainly not most people, I think most people have a good view of the police, but the 99.9% of the good police officers aren't the ones that the media talks about. The traditional media sources, for whatever reason, want to focus on the bad apple. And I guess that's news, and maybe that's their job, but there's so many of you guys out there, guys and gals out there, who you put your life on the line, and you just want to do a good job. You really are closer to Andy Taylor than RoboCop. You want to serve the public. And I hope people listening to this podcast who may not think that way, perhaps think a little bit more that way after listening to this conversation.
Well, anyone who's a first responder is also just a real person.
It's exactly right.
Yeah.
They're real people. They just want to go home at the end of the day.
I couldn't tell you how many countless times I've been at maybe a friend's house. Maybe their kid had a birthday party, or it was a barbecue. And, you know, they're introducing you to new people that you haven't met. And,
yes.
This is my friend, and he's a cop. And I'm like, listen, I'm just a regular guy today. We're just here to have a couple of drinks and maybe tell some funny stories. And and it's not that I'm not embarrassed about being in law enforcement. It's nothing like that. It's just sometimes
you don't want to talk shop at a party.
I just want to be the regular guy today.
That's right.
You know, and that's my classic line. It's funny you said it that way, because that's what I always say. I'm just a regular guy. I'm just me today, you know.
People don't say, hey, look at this guy here. He's an industrial salesman. Now they will say, hey, he's got a podcast, and then they want to talk about that. And I'd love to talk about that kind of stuff, but that's different. I'm never going to be threatened to be shot. People may want to do that, but they're never truly going to threaten to shoot me because of what I said on a podcast. They may think about it. They may curse me, but my life is never in danger running my pie hole on this broadcast.
No, I should think not. It's I'll tell you what, it's been something really new for me, and I get sometimes in weird moods where I don't feel like doing things, and I did one of the worst things you can do as a podcaster, and I took a break. I didn't record for like a month or maybe even more, And that's a horrible idea because I only have a few listeners anyway. So you can't, the few people that are waiting for the next